This man convinced 5 different women to pay his rent, buy his food, and fund his entire lifestyle without working a single day. But what happened next will make you question everything you think you know about karma. This man convinced 5 different women to pay his rent, buy his food, and fund his entire lifestyle without working a single day. But what happened next will make you question everything you think you know about karma. Adam stepped off the bus in Lagos with nothing but a suitcase, a smile, and a dangerous gift. He could make any woman believe she was the only one who mattered. Within 6 months, he had turned this talent into the perfect crime. No violence, no stealing, just pure manipulation wrapped in sweet words and fake promises. But the universe was keeping score, and the bill was about to come due in ways he never saw coming. The problem wasn't that Adam was broke when he arrived in Lagos. Plenty of people start with nothing and build something real through hard work and determination. Adam's problem was much deeper and more dangerous. He looked at every person he met as a tool to be used, especially women. He saw their kindness as weakness, their love as stupidity, and their trust as an opportunity to take advantage. Adam had perfected his approach over the years. He studied women like a hunter studies prey. He learned their insecurities, their dreams, their fears, and then crafted the perfect version of himself to match what they needed. To the lonely secretary, he became the romantic poet who wrote her love letters. To the successful businesswoman, he became the supportive boyfriend who understood her ambitions. To the young student, he became the wise older man who could guide her through life's challenges. His first target in Lagos was Blessing, a 25-year-old nurse who worked night shifts at a private hospital. Adam spotted her at a bus stop after her shift, looking exhausted and worn down. He approached with the perfect combination of concern and charm. "You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders," he said, offering to buy her breakfast at a nearby cafe. Blessing was immediately drawn to his attention. She had been single for 2 years after a painful breakup, and Adam's interest felt like sunlight after a long winter. He listened to her stories about difficult patients and ungrateful supervisors. He nodded in all the right places, asked thoughtful questions, and made her feel like the most important person in the room. Within 2 weeks, Adam had moved into Blessing's small apartment. He convinced her that he was between jobs, looking for something worthy of his talents. He helped around the house, cooked dinner when she came home tired, and made her feel loved in ways she had forgotten were possible. In return, Blessing paid for everything. Rent, food, utilities, even gave him spending money for job interviews that never seemed to happen. But Adam was already planning his next move. He had noticed Sarah, a young marketing executive who lived in the same building. Sarah made more money than Blessing and lived alone in a larger apartment. Adam began timing his trips to the elevator to coincide with Sarah's schedule. He started with small conversations about the weather, then gradually moved to more personal topics. Adam's approach with Sarah was completely different from his approach with Blessing. Where he had been gentle and nurturing with the overworked nurse, he became ambitious and driven with the career-focused executive. He talked about his business ideas, his plans to start his own company, his vision for success. Sarah was impressed by his confidence and his apparent drive to succeed. Soon, Adam was spending 3 nights a week at Sarah's apartment and 4 nights with Blessing. He told Blessing he was staying with a friend who was helping him network for job opportunities. He told Sarah he was temporarily staying with his sick aunt while looking for his own place. Both women believed every word because Adam had become an expert at reading what people wanted to hear. The lies came so naturally that Adam sometimes forgot which story he had told to which woman. He kept detailed notes on his phone about each relationship. Blessing liked romantic movies and Italian food. Sarah preferred action films and Thai cuisine. Blessing wanted to hear about his childhood dreams. Sarah wanted to discuss current events and business trends. Adam's confidence grew with each successful deception. He added a third woman to his rotation, then a fourth. Each relationship followed the same pattern. He would identify a woman who appeared lonely, successful, or vulnerable. He would craft the perfect personality to match her needs. He would gradually move into her life, taking more and more while giving less and less in return. By his 6th month in Lagos, Adam was managing 5 different relationships simultaneously. Monday nights with Blessing, Tuesday and Wednesday with Sarah, Thursday with Choma the banker, Friday with Grace the teacher, and weekends with Fumi the restaurant owner. Each woman believed she was in a committed relationship with a man who was temporarily down on his luck but full of potential. Adam had become a master of logistics. He knew each woman's schedule better than they knew it themselves. He had keys to 4 different apartments and was practically living rent-free while eating restaurant meals and wearing designer clothes paid for by his rotating group of girlfriends. He had achieved the ultimate lazy man's dream, a life of complete luxury funded entirely by other people's hard work and genuine emotions. The system seemed foolproof. Each woman was kept separate from the others through carefully constructed lies and scheduling. Adam never made the mistake of taking 2 women to the same restaurant or introducing them to the same people. He maintained separate social media accounts and different phone numbers for different relationships. He had turned deception into an art form. But Adam had made one critical error in his calculations. He had focused so much on managing the women that he had forgotten about managing the consequences of his actions. Every lie creates ripples, every deception leaves traces, and every heart that gets broken remembers the face of the person who broke it. Adam's biggest mistake was underestimating Lily. She was different from his other targets in ways he didn't fully understand when he first spotted her at a coffee shop in Victoria Island. Lily dressed simply, drove an old Honda instead of a flashy car, and lived in a modest apartment despite clearly having refined taste. Adam assumed she was another middle-class woman struggling to make ends meet. He had no idea she was actually the heir to one of Nigeria's largest fortunes, deliberately living below her means to avoid gold diggers and fake friends. Lily had been burned before by men who only wanted her family's money. After her last relationship ended when she discovered her boyfriend was secretly planning to use her connections to launch his own business, she decided to hide her true identity. She took a job at a small non-profit, rented a simple apartment, and lived on her salary alone. She wanted to find someone who would love her for who she was, not what she could provide. When Adam approached Lily with his usual charm, she was immediately suspicious. She had developed a sixth sense for detecting fake interest after years of dealing with fortune hunters. But Adam's approach was different this time. He seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts, her work helping underprivileged children, her dreams of making a real difference in the world. He listened without trying to impress her with stories of his own supposed success.
What Adam didn't realize was that Lily was testing him. She deliberately mentioned struggling to pay bills, talked about wanting to travel but not having the money, and dropped hints about financial stress. She watched carefully to see if Adam would offer to help or if he would start making excuses about his own supposed wealth. When he did neither, when he instead offered emotional support and suggested free activities they could do together, Lily began to believe she had finally found someone genuine. Adam's deception with Lily was more elaborate than with his other girlfriends because she required more effort to convince. She was smarter, more cautious, and asked better questions. He had to create more detailed lies about his background, his family, and his goals. He told her he was an aspiring writer working on a novel, which explained why he was often free during the day and why he didn't have a regular income. The irony was that Adam's fake persona with Lily was actually closer to being a decent human being than his real personality. To maintain the illusion, he had to pretend to care about social issues, volunteer work, and helping others. He found himself having conversations about books he had never read and causes he had never cared about. Sometimes, in quiet moments with Lily, he almost forgot he was acting. But the real Adam always surfaced eventually. While Lily thought they were building something meaningful together, Adam was still rotating through his other girlfriends, collecting money and gifts from each one. He was spending blessings hard-earned nursing salary on expensive dinners with Sarah. He was using Grace's teacher salary to buy flowers for Funmi. The money and gifts from one woman were constantly being recycled to impress others. Adam's system became more complex as he tried to manage 6 different relationships simultaneously. He carried multiple phones, maintained different email addresses, and had to remember increasingly elaborate stories about where he was and what he was doing. He told Blessing he was taking evening classes. He told Sarah he was doing consulting work that required travel. He told Lily he was doing research for his novel that kept him busy during certain hours. The stress of maintaining so many lives should have been overwhelming, but Adam thrived on it. He enjoyed the challenge of keeping all the stories straight. He felt like a master puppeteer, pulling strings and watching people dance to his tune. Each successful deception boosted his ego and made him believe he was smarter than everyone around him. But Adam's arrogance was blinding him to the warning signs. Blessing had started asking more specific questions about his evening classes, wanting to know which school he attended and what he was studying. Sarah had mentioned wanting to meet his aunt, the one he claimed to be caring for. Grace had offered to help him look for a better apartment, confused about why he never seemed to have time for apartment hunting despite constantly complaining about his living situation. Most dangerously, Lily had begun to notice inconsistencies in his stories. As someone who had been lied to before, she was skilled at detecting deception. She noticed that Adam never had photos from his supposed writing research trips. She realized he never had any concrete details about the novel he claimed to be working on. She started paying attention to his clothes, noticing that he always seemed to have new items despite claiming to be financially struggling. Adam was walking a tightrope that was getting thinner every day. Each lie required more lies to support it. Each girlfriend demanded more time and attention. Each deception created new opportunities for discovery. But he was so intoxicated by his success, so addicted to the lifestyle he had created, that he couldn't see the walls closing in around him. The universe was indeed keeping score, but not in the mystical way Adam would later come to understand. Every person he was deceiving was a human being with their own intelligence, their own social networks, their own ways of discovering the truth. In a city like Lagos, where people talked and connections were everywhere, it was only a matter of time before his carefully separated worlds began to collide. Adam's downfall wouldn't come from karma in the supernatural sense. It would come from the much more practical reality that lies have a shelf life, that people eventually ask questions that can't be answered, and that the truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deep you think you've buried it. The 5 women he was manipulating weren't just sources of money and comfort. They were intelligent, resourceful individuals who would eventually compare notes, ask the right questions, and discover they were all being played by the same smooth-talking man. But before that reckoning could arrive, the universe had a different surprise in store for Adam. One that would turn his carefully ordered world of deception upside down and force him to face consequences he never could have imagined when he first stepped off that bus in Lagos with nothing but a smile and a dangerous gift for manipulation. It was a Tuesday morning when Adam's world began to crumble. He had spent Monday night at Blessing's apartment, convincing her to lend him money for what he claimed was a job interview suit. He was planning to spend Tuesday and Wednesday with Sarah, who had promised to take him shopping for new clothes. Life was good, the system was working perfectly, and Adam felt invincible. The knock on Sarah's door came at exactly 7 in the morning. Adam was still in bed, enjoying the luxury of sleeping late while Sarah prepared for another day of earning the money that funded his lifestyle. He heard Sarah answer the door, heard her confused voice asking questions, and then heard something that made his blood run cold, the sound of crying babies. Adam stumbled out of bed and found Sarah standing in the doorway, staring at a scene that seemed impossible. 5 babies, each in a carrier, sat on the hallway floor. Next to each carrier was an envelope with Adam's name written in different handwriting. Sarah's face was a mixture of confusion and growing horror as she read the first note aloud. Adam, this is your son. I can't take care of him anymore. You need to be a father now. The second note was similar but in different handwriting. Adam, your daughter needs her father. I'm leaving her with you because you promised to take care of us. The third, fourth, and fifth notes all contain variations of the same message. 5 different women, 5 babies, all claiming Adam as the father. Adam's mind raced as he tried to process what was happening. He had been careful, or so he thought. But as he looked at the babies, he began to remember faces, nights that had bled together in his endless rotation of relationships, promises he had made and forgotten, consequences he had never considered. Sarah's voice cut through his panic like a knife. Adam, what is this? Who are these babies? What have you been doing? Her voice was rising with each question, and Adam could see the pieces falling into place in her mind. The mysterious schedule, the vague explanations about where he spent his time, the phone calls he always took in private. Adam tried to explain, tried to claim it was all a mistake, that he had no idea who these babies belonged to or why someone would leave them at Sarah's door. But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She was looking at him with the clear eyes of someone who had just realized they'd been living with a stranger. Within an hour, Sarah had packed Adam's belongings and demanded he leave. She wanted nothing to do with him or the babies or whatever mess he had created. Adam found himself standing on the street with 5 crying infants and no idea what to do next.
He tried calling his other girlfriends, hoping one of them would help, but the conversations were disasters. When he called Blessing and tried to explain the situation, she immediately became suspicious about where he had been staying and why babies were being left at someone else's apartment. When he called Grace, she asked pointed questions about his relationship history that he couldn't answer without revealing his other deceptions. Each phone call made his situation worse. The women were starting to compare notes, asking questions about discrepancies in his stories, demanding explanations he couldn't provide without admitting to his elaborate web of lies. Adam realized with growing terror that his carefully separated worlds were colliding in the most spectacular way possible. It was Lily who saved him, though Adam didn't deserve her kindness. When he called her in desperation, she could hear the crying babies in the background and the panic in his voice. Despite her growing suspicions about his honesty, she couldn't ignore the sound of helpless children who needed care. Lily arrived within an hour, took one look at the situation, and immediately began organizing. She had experience with children from her volunteer work, and she knew what babies needed even if she didn't understand how Adam had ended up in this impossible situation. She bought formula, diapers, and everything else required to care for 5 infants while Adam sat in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his predicament. For the first time in his adult life, Adam was faced with real responsibility. These weren't women he could charm and manipulate. These were helpless human beings who needed constant care, attention, and resources. They cried when they were hungry, needed changing every few hours, and required someone to watch them every moment of every day. Lily stepped into the role of caretaker with the same efficiency she brought to her non-profit work. She created feeding schedules, organized sleeping arrangements in her small apartment, and somehow managed to keep 5 babies fed, clean, and reasonably content. Adam watched in amazement and growing guilt as this woman he had been deceiving showed more genuine care and competence in one day than he had shown in his entire adult life. But Adam's true character emerged even in this crisis. Instead of being grateful for Lily's help, instead of recognizing the incredible gift she was giving him by caring for children that weren't even hers, he began to see her assistance as permission to return to his old ways. If Lily was handling the babies, he reasoned, then he was free to go back to his life of manipulation and leisure. Within a week of the baby's arrival, Adam was already making plans to reconnect with his other girlfriends. He told Lily he needed to look for work to support the children, but instead he spent his days trying to repair the relationships he had damaged with his other women. He crafted new lies to explain the gap in his availability, blaming family emergencies and temporary relocations. Lily began to notice Adam's absence during the most difficult parts of caring for the babies. He would disappear during feeding times, claim to be job hunting during the hours when the children were most fussy, and always seemed to have somewhere else to be when real work needed to be done. She was carrying the entire burden of caring for 5 infants while Adam treated the situation like a temporary inconvenience. The breaking point came when Lily discovered Adam bringing other women to her apartment. She returned early from buying baby supplies to find Adam entertaining a woman she didn't recognize, acting as if the crying babies in the next room were just a minor background noise. The woman seemed confused by the children's presence, and Adam was clearly trying to downplay their importance. Lily realized in that moment that Adam hadn't learned anything from the crisis. He wasn't stepping up to be a father or even a decent human being. He was still the same selfish manipulator who saw other people as tools for his comfort and convenience. She was enabling his behavior by taking responsibility that should have been his. That night, after the other woman left and the babies were finally asleep, Lily confronted Adam about his behavior. She demanded to know who the other woman was, why he was bringing strangers around the children, and when he planned to start acting like a responsible adult. Adam's response revealed everything about his character. He blamed Lily for being controlling, claimed she was trying to trap him with children that weren't even hers, and suggested that if she didn't like the arrangement, she could leave. It was the last straw for Lily. She had been patient, understanding, and incredibly generous, but she finally saw Adam for exactly what he was, a parasite who would take and take and take without ever giving anything back. The man she thought she was falling in love with didn't exist. He was just another character Adam had created to manipulate her emotions and exploit her kindness.